someone else in order for the whole merger to go forward.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, you know, operating in a global environment now, and you know, if we look at the general trends, I suppose, you know, we could say that Western, North American and European companies are going to have to be penetrating emerging, so-called emerging markets ever more to find sources of growth. And so we are going to have ever greater flows of investment from the so-called developed world to the more emerging markets. And on the other hand, we also have the other flow, which is Indian and Chinese and other companies buying Western European companies and American companies. And so these issues of cultural integration and making these cross-border investments is going to become ever greater. And our feeling is that really it is time now to figure out how these cultural issues can actually be dealt with in a proactive way, rather than being relegated to the bottom of the list or even ignored. Because you have all your post-merger integration plans or your investment plans around processes and systems and IT and regulation and all this stuff, and then no one actually goes, hang on a minute, how are we going to get these guys to work together?
Yeah. And we all know that people are the most valuable resource, so it's kind of ironic.
It is ironic, it is ironic. And interestingly, when you think about what that might mean, it actually means that we need to be thinking ahead of making an investment, some kind of a due diligence process, something which actually goes, what can we expect the issues to be, and how are we going to identify what those issues might be, and how can we then plan to address those issues rather than waiting for it all to go wrong after the event.
Yeah. I mean, our experience is so many clients come to us after the deal has started to go wrong and the problems are surfacing, and then it's so much harder to fix them than if you'd taken a proactive approach in the early stages of the integration. So absolutely. Yeah.
And it's not just about mergers and acquisitions, this is about any cross-border investment. I mean, we've seen it in the mining context, we've seen it, you know, where these are just massive projects where, you know, major mining companies have awful problems trying to get things on the ground. This is a project-based issue where there are, you just got to deal with people. It's as simple as that.
And it's interesting you made the comment about working with emerging markets much more, but we've also worked with British businesses who've been acquired by a US company, and they've had similar problems.
All European companies, German companies acquiring British companies. We've seen it. This is not just about emerging markets. That's absolutely right. That is absolutely right.
And the interesting thing there is that a lot of the time, some companies do tend to see the obvious issues, which is differences in language, differences in religion, and they tend to neglect the things that they don't see they're not obvious, which are far more important for employee motivation, for rewards and everything like that.
You had that iceberg model of the cultural piece where the cultural differences, you know, the visible bit is 20% and the rest of the iceberg is under the water and invisible, and where all the problems lie. So the challenge then that we want for the MBA students is essentially, I mean, let's just talk about that a minute. I mean, we think that there is an opportunity here to define a new component, if you like, to what should be a due diligence process. And we are saying that culture really matters and that shareholder value gets destroyed unless these issues are addressed. And that there ought to be a formal process which we should recommend to companies to go through. And so, what do we want these guys to do? Frank?
We basically want them to explain what this process is. We basically want them not to address only what you said before, the top of the iceberg, but also find out the underlying factors, the things that we don't necessarily see. And occasionally those things might not be easily generalizable, so it might be culturally embedded. So one culture might have certain factors that we need to be aware of, other cultures have other factors, and this is why we won't ask the different teams to do the same project, but we'll ask them to do different projects basically, in order for us then to go back and see what might be the underlying differences between the different projects.
But the output what we're hoping to come out of all of this is a series of methodologies, structured approaches that can be applied in the form of maybe questionnaires, in the form of checklists of issues that need to be addressed, in the form of lists of possible interventions that might be appropriate for different contexts. We're looking really for a due diligence process that people can go through in a rigorous way, so that they know, company X investing wherever it might be or merging with whatever, that they can go through a structured process to identify the key issues and come up with strategies to mitigate the risks, and indeed to maximise the benefits. It is not just about risk mitigation and stopping things going wrong. It is also very much about how you actually make it really work.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, because often we talk about cultural gaps and cultural problems and cultural distance between countries and companies, and so often there's actually so much synergy that they could have together, that if they would recognise it, there could be even more financial benefits for the company and human benefits.
And that's right. And we do actually know that organisations and societies that are very diverse and manage to actually capture the best of that end up actually being stronger and better. So the opportunity side of it actually contains some very great prizes for companies that get it right.
Absolutely.
So, are we done? Yeah?
I think we are.
So.
Good. Guys, good luck with the project. We're going to be meeting you guys hopefully either virtually or face to face. We're really looking forward to seeing what comes out of this. We think that this project might last over quite some time, and that you guys are beginning a journey which is going to hopefully end up with some genuinely applicable results which we can take to the broader market and hopefully publish the results of this program. So please apply your best brains to cracking the problem of how we can come up with a cultural due diligence process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Luck.
Good.
All right.
Should we press stop?
Should we press stop?
That was good.
I think this is first take, one take, isn't it? It's done.
Because it's more natural, isn't it? So then
We couldn't do it again.
I don't really care.